In 1908, in Washington, D.C., right here, with President Theodore Roosevelt in the audience, the play The Melting Pot debuted at the Columbia Theater. The theater was torn down in 1959, but was on F Street between 11th and 12th. And this is just a block off of Metro Center today. My colleague Jonathan Waxman pointed me to this play. It is widely believed that this play coined the phrase, the melting pot, to describe the cultural diversity of America. And with the swelling of American cities with immigrants from around the world at the turn of that century, the playwright Israel Zangwill gave name to the vision of what America could be. What Zangwill had in mind is suggested by these lines of his play. Understand that America is God's crucible, the great melting pot where all the races of Europe are melting and reforming, Germans and Frenchmen, Irishmen and Englishmen, Jews and Russians, into the crucible with you all. God is making the American, he writes. Like the ingredients thrown into a pot, the contributions of ethnic diversity would create a new American identity, a new American. I would add to those lines that the contributions of Americans from far beyond Europe and with diverse identities have contributed to the greatness of our country. Zangwill's assertion that God is forming a new American might have a waft of arrogance, but just think back a century. It was a bold vision for a growing country. And in a time of nations being formed around ethnic identities, Italian unification in 1861, Ireland declared independence in 1919, the Kingdom of Greece was declared in 1830, and the German Empire is professed in 1871. Zangwill's assertion that this ethnic and cultural amalgam was going to be a different type of nation. America was going to be a stronger nation formed around different ideas and priorities. Zangwill's America would cultivate a unique national experience embracing diversity. This cultural blending in America would strengthen the nation because it took the best of the world's nations and, in theory, fashioned a new and hardier person. The ideal was a new type of person, a new nation that would cull the best from the immigrant lands and leave the distasteful folkways on the boats. To that effect, the phrase, which was applied to a person who did not know the normative customs of America, was that they were fresh off the boat. This derogatory name was to explain why they were not more Americanized. It might be an accent or a way of dress, an affinity for the language of origin within the home, ethnic food, or any other number of triggers. They were a new immigrant and not yet Americanized. Zangwill's play debuted over 100 years ago, but the melting pot theory continues to be essential, even as it is debated. Many of the alternative phrases or alternative metaphors, a salad bowl or a symphony or even a stew, play with the question of how much of one's identity of origin should be maintained as one acculturates into a new society. In an article in Harvard's Pluralism Project, and well before Zangwill, a French essayist had described America's new race of people in language that prefigured the melting pot. In Letters from an American Farmer, that was written in 1782, I won't get his name right, but Hector Saint John de Crèvecoeur, my French is not very good, described with astonishment the man whose grandfather was English, whose wife was Dutch, and whose son married a Frenchwoman. This, he says, is the American. Here, individuals of all nations are melted into a new race of men whose labors and posterity will one day cause a great change in the world. He envisioned the melting away of divisive differences in religion too, as Catholics and German Lutherans and Dutch Reformed farmers were now neighbors and not rivals. His book, though published in the late 1700s, gave future generations much to think about as they grappled with the issues of differences in American society. The melting pot idea is at the center of political debate today. It is a frequent topic for politicians' stump speeches and stoking passions. An example of this is from an article from Mike Gonzalez, senior fellow from the Heritage Foundation's journal E Pluribus Unum. And he writes, ensuring that immigration be legal and orderly, and that it be accompanied by this strong assimilationist effort, and that the immigrants agree to this assimilation, is what reassures people that their culture will not be destroyed. Even legal immigrants devoid of assimilation represent a threat to cultural continuation, he writes. As for illegal immigration, especially massive and unruly, I was going to leave this part out, but I started it, which is what we saw under Biden. It is more akin to the invasion described above, especially when immigrants are officially discouraged from assimilation to the mores of the country. The people who designed a system of illegal and disorderly immigration where assimilation is discouraged sought to destroy the America that existed. They are the ones interested in genocide, he writes from the Heritage Foundation, cultural genocide. Gonzalez expresses a fear of immigrants if they are unwilling to assimilate into the country. He says it will lead to cultural genocide of America. Not a view I agree with, but it helps us see the divide, how wide the divide is that we are grappling with today. I think about the melting pot in another way. What does it mean to be hyphenated? A Jewish American, a Mexican American, an Irish American. The ancient Israelites were plagued by the same balancing act. For the Israelites of the Torah, what did it mean to be simultaneously an Israelite and affiliated as a Danite or a Benjaminite or a Judahite? And though the tribes disappeared by the end of the First Temple period, through dispersion, even in later literature, there are some who assert links to those various tribes. Contrary to the melting pot concept, the notion of dissolving identities didn't sit well with the Torah. In the Parsha today, each tribe is accounted for in detail through a census. Although each is counted individually, they are all called Israelites. There is a duality or a hyphen between the broader Israelite identity and the tribal identity. A pasuk says, the Israelites shall camp each with his standard under the banner of their ancestral home. They shall camp around the tent of meeting at a distance. So around the tabernacle by their own tribal identities. They are called both Israelites and identified as their ancestral house. They are simultaneously part of two groups, Israel and their tribe. They are hyphenated. The tribes came together as a people and yet retain their distinctive identities. At darker points, a cultural hyphen implied dual loyalties or an unwillingness to fully embrace an assumed narrative of American heritage. It was met with distrust and suspicion and presumption of malicious intent. Think of Japanese Americans loyal to Japan during World War II, or I should say, the fear that they were loyal to Japan. Or Jewish Americans loyal to Israel, or Persian Americans loyal to Iran. For a long time, first and second generation immigrants wanted to pass as Americans by hiding their origins. Names were changed, clothes were changed, new foods were added to their diets. Older relatives might have been an embarrassment. My own family changed our name from the more ethnic name Seidenberg to a more subdued Harris in only the past generation. From Philip Roth to Henry Roth, Modern Jewish writing is filled with the tension of the hyphen. Today, a cultural hyphen is being challenged throughout society. To be clear, I am a Jewish American with pride, not shame. It is a sign of loyalty to my people and my nation, my values, and our nation's ethos. I add my cultural hyphen with an excitement and feel honored. While the political climate from the political left and the political right wants us to feel unsafe, I will not cower. From the recent murders of Yaron Lashinsky and Sarah Milgram outside the Capitol Jewish Museum, from the left, or the right using the guise of fighting anti-Semitism to bludgeon universities and the rights of due process, I exuberantly declare that I am a Jewish American, hyphen and all. In a 1967 speech in Illinois, Vice President Hubert Humphrey, not often quoted, developed the melting pot even further. He said, "The time has long passed when people like to regard the United States as some kind of melting pot, taking men and women from every part of the world and converting them into standardized, homogenized Americans. We are, I think, much more mature and wise today. Just as we welcome a world of diversity, so we glory in an America of diversity, an America all the richer for the many different and distinctive strands of which it is written." He said that in 1967. So we must ask in the Torah reading, are they more Benjaminites or Israelites? Judites or Israelites? Of course, we know the sums are greater than their parts, but the parts are symbiotically essential as well. This is the tension of the hyphen. We know that at times the unity of the Israelites ebbed, though. Sometimes the tribal identity was stronger than the group identity. And so we can learn from this. How can we balance the richness of being Jewish Americans and draw from diverse cultural experiences? I believe the answer is found in the second half of the same verse. The Israelites shall camp each around his standard under the banners of their ancestral house. They shall camp around the tent of meeting at a distance. While the people had multiple identities, they remained centered on one thing which bound them together. They shall camp around the tent of meeting. At the center of the tent of meeting was the ark with the Aseret Adibroth, the Ten Commandments. At the core of the people of Israel was Torah. That is what unified them. And this is what must remain at the center of our endeavors to assure that we remain true to both of our influences as Jews and Americans. As Jews, we must keep at the center Jewish values and guidance. As Americans, we must guard our core values as a nation. In an article by the Library of Congress titled "Creating the United States Founded on a Set of Beliefs," it says, "The American Republic was founded on a set of beliefs that were tested during the Revolutionary War. Among them was the idea that all people are created equal, whether European, Native American, or African American, and that these people have fundamental rights, such as liberty, free speech, freedom of religion, due process of law, and freedom of assembly. America's revolutionaries openly discussed these concepts, and many Americans agreed with them, but some found that the ideology was far more acceptable in the abstract than in practice." Those values, our values, are being challenged today. Like the Israelites put the tabernacle, the holder of the Ten Commandments, in the center of their encampments, we too must remain rooted and guided by our values as Jews and as Americans. We need to understand that our core values are as portable as the tabernacle was for the Israelites walking towards Eretz Israel. For us as Jews to live up to the charge of being a light unto the nations, we must embrace the hyphen. We must remain vigilant in nurturing the cultural and spiritual contributions we offer this nation. That is how the country will remain great. when all of our hyphens become richer and more vibrant and fuller, and together we will see that the sum is more than the parts. Downtown today, the site of the former Columbia Theater, where Zagwill's play was first performed, is Restaurant Tosca, if you have been there. And it's around the corner from a Nordstrom's rack. There continue to be challenges to the hyphen, but we are not new to this. There were challenges 3,000 years ago for the Israelites, and we are certainly facing the same challenges today as well. So I pray that we lean in to make our hyphens brighter and bolder and share them with each other. Shabbat Shalom.